From the foregoing, you will not need to be a rocket scientist to know that Ruto is now a man under siege. And I'm saying that because, I feel that perhaps Ruto failed to prioritize on what he needed to champion for in the first place.
Wacha hasira ya Ruto, hasira ya Ruto ni kidogo. Hasira yenye iko na hawa wananchi ambao wamelala njaa, ambao wamepandishiwa chakula, bei ya chakula.
Tumesema hivi kama Kenya Kwanza. Sasa pale sokoni simu utakuwa unapiga free of charge, simu haitakuwa inakatika.
And the moment he came to power, one of the things that he might have failed to realize is that, a man like Raila Odinga, or the political environment of Kenya, is such a political environment which you cannot just disown, or you cannot just say that the moment you become a president, you will deal with everything amicably well, and at the same time, you cannot be sure that people will be behind you 100%. There is somewhere where Ruto failed. When he came to office, he failed to prioritize on what he needed to champion for. Like in the first case, Ruto was very, very much vocal on moving on with the hustlers. And I remember he mentioned many a times that the government will be a hustlers government. Now, if you look at this government, is it really a hustlers government? The answer is based on you specifically. What do you think? And I want us to attach what we are seeing right now, what everybody is seeing right now. Now, number one, Ruto undermined the forces that are actually shaping the politics. And one thing I have realized is that, too many cooks will always spoil the broth. Ruto went for everybody. Ruto was not an independently strategic leader. And if the true, the way we are seeing things, he is still not appearing to be an autonomous president. For instance, you see some of his lieutenants are now coming out to be disagreeing in silence or in a little bit of noise with whatever Ruto is bringing on board. Some of them are seeing that the kind of approach that William Ruto is giving to his presidency or this term, the first term, is not appropriate and might not effectively manage the political turbulence that we are seeing and that we are always seeing in our political arena. So the priority that he gave his first term messed him definitely well. I remember when he was really campaigning, the message that he instilled was that, after 100 days, and even sometimes he would go and say, even before 100 days, this is what we'll do. And people were completely looking for a complete overhaul. But that is like a distant flute now. And Ruto has failed to maintain the priority that he put before people. When you lose the mark, when you lose the focus on the bullseye, definitely it is a no game. It is a no win at all. A lot of people suffered in President Uhuru Kenyatta's regime, and the economy was not so much good. People were really feeling the pinch, and people brought William Ruto with a lot of sympathy, such that, when Ruto gets into the office, Ruto will empathize. Is that the correct word? Ruto will start to see the real thorn in the flesh that is actually affecting the longevity of the people. And then when he addressed it, people will be very happy. But that is what he neglected in the first place. Instead, what he came and started doing was to change the structure. And I also begin to see that it is the advisors who failed to advise Ruto. Some of the advisors actually told him that, boss, for you to build the economy, you have to change what was in place. Like, for instance, withdraw the subsidies. Can you increase the taxes? And can you just try to be very long-term oriented? Because people will not be, happy waiting that, in future we will see the cost of living coming down. Yet, as at now, we cannot even manage what is, the present condition. And at the same time, you don't promise people that things will be better, and you continue to increase taxes day by day. it is not something very good. You cannot continue to promise people that things will be well, and the promises you made to them in the first place, especially during campaigns, like for instance, I will give you millions of jobs, I will give you, things like that. They don't see anything coming out of it perfectly well. Yet in the reality, they are seeing the people you brought on board to work with are actually turning out to be bourgeoisies, turning out to be affluently living and living the best of their lives, trying to be braggarts at every time. So it tells you definitely that there is something that, Ruto misplaced in his priorities. They always talk of the first love. The first love that Ruto had for people had been misplaced. And going forward, when you look at the manner in which Azimio is actually playing its politics, the Azimio team is now looking at the limitations, or what we always say, the weaknesses of the government. They are noting that, this man actually promised people that he will do this, and people really relied on him. And now that he is in the position, he's not giving attention to it. Now let us leverage on it. And that is how, the person who will run away with this will actually have stable ground. I've always said a lot of times in my previous video, the person who will run away with this effectively well, by the time Ruto is still sleeping, by the time he's still having the slumber, definitely, he will have the day prepared well for 2027. So Ruto misplaced his priority, and Ruto did not take into account what the people needed to see from him from day one. A promise is a debt. If you don't keep your promise, sometimes there is that concept of promissory estoppel. The promissory estoppel comes like, if you promise somebody something and you fail to deliver it to them, they can sue you in the court of law, especially the promissory estoppel context, which is touching on a parent promising a child something and then they do not fulfill at the end. The child can sue you. You have to meet the obligation. So Ruto missed the priority, and this is one of the things that is making him to be a man under siege, because he's now confused. He's now not having a strategically positioned mindset to deal with all this that is happening. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? What do you have? How do you think Ruto should handle all this? How do you think he can manage well the political turbulence to ensure that, he doesn't become the one-term president? Because from the foregoing, if he doesn't take serious measures, then definitely he will be a one-term president. What do you think? Let me hear from you, and we'll meet in the next analysis.